There is nothing that can possibly be said in defense of those who refused to arrest Gail Burstyn, focused instead on a victim of torture in childhood and tortured their victim even further in insane crimes for 40 years. Nothing can be said to justify it. And we know that one of the things that is being said is that it was an attempt to promote a discussion. You don't promote discussions that way. It's criminally insane. I was a public school student when they attacked me as a child. Okay, but we know that they're criminally insane. So nothing good can be said unless you consider being criminally insane a good thing to be. So we know that they don't think that a child had rights because people believe that they can commit abortion. Oh, so the child has no rights. So no child has any rights because abortion is legal. It's their mentality. Again, it's Manson, it's criminally insane. There's nothing to discuss about them. They're criminally insane. But it, we're talking about McCartney, Paul McCartney, Daniel Ellsberg, and Noam Chomsky. So there's bound to be some discussion. And they didn't delectate over the delectations of despair for 40 years because they didn't think there was something to discuss. So I'll answer the 60s freaks who pulled this thing together. I was younger. I was born in 1960, so 60s played out that time I was 10, 11 years old. So I was younger than them. I wasn't in that crowd. I wasn't draft eligible, but of course they drafted me illegally anyway with blindside attacks and human trafficking. But technically, I wasn't eligible for the draft. And the 70s played out until I was 20. So they were draft age in the 60s, and I was just a child. Now, Mayor Pete Flaherty tried to forbid children from going to here, but my stepmother took me anyway. And there was someone named Caligiuri who I used to suck my thumb as a child. I'd twizzle my hair and suck my thumb. And, I'd quarrel it. And so when they tortured me and then locked me in a shack with a girl who was voluptuously developed, it was natural that I would escapism and she was experienced and she knew how to coach me to get what she wanted from me. In the Seven Beauties concentration camp whip show that Eastminster put on with the British in East End of Pittsburgh when I was a child, 11, 12 years old, after they slaughtered me, tortured me, and kidnapped me and subjected me to a sort of moonshine crucifixion, in which the ghouls and the Ku Klux Klan talking to me in tongues and stuff. When I was at the age of watching Captain Kangaroo yank me off the street, torture me. Um, and then they claimed that it was all balderdash. It's not balderdash, it's what happened. So we know these. Now, what did I know about the 60s? Well, I heard things like um, we're finally on our own. Well, the ghouls in the VA depicted this as an issue of the deed of Donbass because Pitt will appeal to any kook anywhere in the world to try to justify their brutality towards the Pittsburgh public school system and their endless robbing of the museums and their laws for the organized Jewish community's medical show, like Watmaker's use of nerve agents on Jimmy Carrey as a child. They'll appeal to any kook anywhere in the world. And they'll appeal to distinguished individuals across the boundaries who have something to gain or something they perceive to be at stake. They'll pick a fight with anybody, anywhere in Hollywood, anywhere on the spectrum of politics, anywhere in the world to justify torturing a child in a manner that is criminally insane. Well, what did I know about the 60s? We're finally on our own, right? Well, these aliens and their UFOs from the Pentagon land on the roof with their SWAT team, Clint Eastwood show, right? Giving me scabies and so on. And they say, Queerball, that's what do you know about the 60s? We're finally on our own, which means, well, they say, well, if you don't side with the invasion of Grenada, that means you're officially with Russia. So you decide, because we'll be glad to turn you over to Putin if that's what you want. And Putin's crowd is the sort of people who watch very closely and despise weakness and would be likely to love having someone from Bush's ship in the Navy to bother. So, I mean, they don't look that bad as gentlemen when you ask me, what do I think of their talent show? I mean, they seem to be very interesting, capable people, and they're overstepping their sovereignty as we have done, and it's horrifying the world as we have horrified the world. And it's not a tongue twister; it's a single ethical standard that the UN says we all should reform to conform to the international standards of the United Nations. While, of course, they dog whip a public school child who's 10 or 11 years old because they're all licky chops at the Peep Show. That's what they have child pornography. Peep. And Michael Reagan says, "Oh, this is a very important conversation. We must have child pornography. Peep." And Teresa Coffey says, "Well, the wisdom says to let them have their conversation about Reagan and Curry. What's the Reagan Curry conversation? Oh, Michael Reagan says he was just having fun. He wasn't torturing Curry. Says I was obvious in torture. They used a nerve agent on me. They subjected me to trauma. There's disturbing scars in my face, and they're covering for a world nightmare. And we're finally on our own because they make it look like there's a civil war going on. You have to choose between a civil war, but secretly they were in on the electrifying European putsch that gobbled the queers and our grannies with bacterial warfare. And we're not supposed to say that because we don't want them to do it again. Well, we don't want them to do it again. I don't want them to do it again. I didn't want them to do it in the first place. I was trying to warn people when the queers swooped down on the UFOs from Pentagon, Disney, Clint Eastwood, Hollywood, saying, "Hold it, you're after a penny. We're going to rip them over a girl over a penny." And that's what they did. Paul McCartney said, "Rip her because that's my penny." And then they kick the grannies out, right? And if you don't like it, we'll start poaching little girls, is what they say. You can't pick on big old Danny Ellsberg because he's got little girls on the front line and he knows which ones you care about. So you be careful with Danny Ellsberg and this is what they did. Yes, the 60s were finally on our own. Who abandoned us? The motherfuckers who wrote that song is who abandoned us. They're motherfuckers.